After a detailed discussion on laws of reflection and laws of refraction on the basis of Fermat's principle, now we are going to discuss a very important application of Fermat's principle. And in fact, in this application, we will see the deduction of a spherical mirror formula from Fermat's principle. So I hope you have definitely in your memory what is this spherical mirror formula, because this is a very elementary concept of geometrical optics which is actually studied in lower classes. So you have definitely studied it in the geometrical optics in high school level or even in plus 2 level. But here we will deduce this formula by the use of Fermat's principle. So just you can see I have mentioned here the spherical mirror formula, and you know this is 1 over b plus 1 over u equal to 2 over r equal to 1 over f, because you know this f is equal to r by 2. In fact, you know that this u represents the object distance, v image distance, r is radius of curvature of the mirror, and f is focal length of the mirror. And you know that focal length of a mirror is simply half of its radius of curvature. So instead of 2 over r, you can write 1 over f. So this is your spherical mirror formula. Now we will know how this formula can be derived by the use of Fermat's principle. So let us see this figure. In this figure, actually I have shown that this xy is a mirror. You can see this xy is a concave mirror. You can see concave mirror. You may also take a convex mirror. It does not matter. This result will be derived considering either a concave mirror or a convex mirror. But in this figure I have shown a concave mirror, and you can see that this at this point A there is just a source of light, that is an object, and from this object let us consider a paraxial light ray AP. You can see in this figure this AP is actually a light ray incident on the mirror at point P from this source A, and in fact O is the pole of this mirror, and this point P where the incident light is actually this light ray is incident, that P point is very close to O, and you know that if the incident light is very close to the principal axis of the optical element, then that incident ray is known as paraxial ray. So actually this AP is the paraxial ray, because this AP is very close to AO, and you know this AO is what? This is actually the principal axis or optic axis of this mirror. So definitely our calculation is based upon the assumption that we are considering the incident ray is a paraxial ray, and when this light ray is incident at point B, it gets reflected, and after reflection this light ray actually intersects the principal axis at this point B. You can also take a light ray which is actually originated from this source A and moves along the principal axis. Since this will pass through the center of curvature C, so it will incident on this mirror normally. So after reflection this will retrace its path. So the two reflected rays, first one is reflected from point P and another is reflected from point O, and these two reflected beams actually intersect at this point B, and so B is a real image of this object A formed due to the reflection of paraxial rays. So you can simply say that A is an object situated on the principal axis of the mirror, and B is its real image. And you can see I have assumed that this point C lying on this principal axis is actually the center of curvature of this mirror. So you can see this length CP will be simply equal to radius of curvature R. And as you know, the distance of the object from the pole of the mirror is known as object distance, and I have denoted that distance by the symbol U. So OA, which is equal to U, that is actually the object distance. And similarly, the distance of this image B from the pole of the mirror is B, as I have shown in this figure. And C is the center of curvature, so distance of this C from O or from P, you can say, that is equal to R, and this is radius of curvature of this mirror. Now for the calculation we need some construction, and for that let us draw a perpendicular PN. You can see this figure. This PN is a perpendicular drawn on the principal axis of the mirror from this point P, and I have assumed that this PN is equal to H, and the distance of the foot of this perpendicular from the pole of the mirror, that is ON, is equal to X. So ON is equal to X. Actually all these things which I have actually explained here, I have already written for your convenience in another page. You can see everything which I have actually explained in that figure. All things are mentioned here, so you may read this written fact which actually explains that figure. Now one thing here we should note, when you consider that AP is a paraxial ray, as I have told you, paraxial ray means what? Paraxial ray means a light ray which is very close to the principal axis of this mirror. So this point P will be very close to O, and when P will be very close to O, this distance ON, which we have assumed is X, that X will be actually very small. So you can simply say, in case of paraxial ray, this X will tend to 0. This is much smaller than any distances shown in this figure. That is, it is much smaller than V, it is much smaller than R, it is much smaller than U, and so this X is very small. Now see this figure. Since light ray starts from point A and finally it reaches to point B, so what is actually the optical path? Because you know, whenever we talk about Fermat's principle, we have to calculate either time taken by light from its initial position to final, or the optical path connecting the initial and final position. So see this figure. I have shown that the length of this ray AP is equal to L1. I have mentioned here L1, and PB is equal to L2. And since these two paths are contained in the same medium, so for simplicity I am considering that this medium is either vacuum or it is either air. So refractive index will be equal to 1. So optical path covered by the light ray traveling from A to B will be simply equal to AP plus PB, and that will be equal to L1 plus L2. So in accordance with the geometry of the figure, you may write here that optical path described by the light. If you consider that this optical path is L, this will be simply equal to what? That will be equal to, you can see that figure, that will be equal to AP plus PB. And I have assumed that this AP is equal to L1 and this is equal to L2. Since here you know the refractive index is equal to 1, so there is no need to multiply these lengths L1 and L2 by the refractive index. So we simply said that the optical path is equal to L1 plus L2. So now, in fact, with the help of the geometry of figure, we will find the value of L1 and L2, and then substituting those values in equation 1, we will be able to find the optical path. So now see the geometry of the figure, and from that geometry of figure, let us try to find the value of L1 and L2. But before that, let us see here. You can see this PC can be found from the geometry of figure in this manner. So you can see this PC square will be what? You can see this will be in fact Cn square plus Pn square. Cn square, see here, this is Cn and this is Pn, so this will be Cn square plus Pn square. And this is Cn square. Cn can be written as OC minus On. You can see this figure. Cn will be equal to OC minus On and plus Pn square. Plus Pn square. Now see, this OC minus On. OC, you know, it is R, and On is equal to X. So this is R minus X whole square. And plus Pn square, you can see this Pn is H. Actually, we have assumed it H. So this is H square. And let us simplify this on the basis of formula of A minus B whole square. This will be R square plus X square minus 2Rx and plus H square. Plus H square. And PC square means what? PC square means R square. So you can see this R square and this R square will cancel out, and so finally we get that this X square minus 2Rx plus H square, this will be equal to 0. And you can see that this may be written as X square plus H square is equal to 2Rx. X square plus H square equal to 2Rx. So let us say this is equation A. I have written a separate equation number for this. Actually, we will need of this equation for finding the value of L1 and L2. Now from the geometry of figure, we will actually find the value of this AP or L1. So see this figure, because I will write its expression in another page. So see this figure seriously here. In fact, this AP square from the geometry of figure will be simply equal to AN square plus PN square. And AN, you can see, that will be equal to U minus X. So write it in another page. So see here. Now L1, let us say L1 square. This will be, you can see the figure, this will be equal to AP square, and as I have shown you in that figure, this will be equal to AN square plus NP square. AN square plus NP square. And you know AN can be written as what? This can be written as OA minus ON. So OA minus ON whole square plus NP square. And what is this OA? This is simply the object distance U, and ON you have seen in that figure, that is equal to X. So this is U minus X whole square, and NP is equal to H. So this is H square. Now let us simplify it. You can see this will be U square minus 2ux plus x square plus h square. Now see this, x square plus h square. You can see here this x square plus h square is equal to 2rx. We have already found it. So let us substitute the value of x square plus h square, which we have already found. So by substituting that value, you can see this L1 square will be equal to u square minus 2ux and plus 2rx, because the sum of x square and h square is equal to 2rx. You have already seen this. It means here we have used the equation A. Now write the expression for L1. So when you will write L1, we will take the square root of RHS, and you can see this will be u square, and in the second and third term you can take 2x as a common factor. So take 2x as a common factor. So the remaining term will be r minus u and whole to the power half. Now take this u square as a common factor. Since it is inside the square root, so when you will take it outside of the square root, that will be u. So this is u times 1 plus 2x times r minus u over u square and whole to the power half. Whole to the power half. Now see, as I have told you earlier, that in case of paraxial rays, this x is very small. Mathematically we say that x is tending towards 0. So definitely the second term in this square bracket will be much smaller than 1. Or you can say that this 2x into r minus u over u square will be much smaller than 1 in case of paraxial rays, and our supposition is that the image is formed by paraxial rays. And so you have definitely studied in binomial expansion that 1 plus x to the power n is simply equal to 1 plus nx, but only when x is much smaller than 1. This is actually called first approximation. So here this condition that x is much smaller than 1 is holding here, because you can see in case of paraxial ray 2x into r minus u over u square is much smaller than 1. So we will use the condition of first approximation. So using the condition of first approximation of binomial expansion, you can write what will be the value of L1. So L1 will be equal to u into 1 plus 2x into r minus u over 2u square. N is in fact 1 by 2. So this 2 and this 2 will cancel out, and our result is what? Our result is L1 equal to u into 1 plus x into r minus u over u square, and say this is equation 2. As you can see, I have calculated the value of L1. Now in the light of this result, we can directly write what will be the value of this L2. You can compare this. Actually, when you will write L2 instead of L1, in fact in that condition you can see instead of this an, that there will be in fact this bn. So you can simply say that if we will replace u by v, then we will get L2 instead of L1. So there is no need to calculate the value of L2 independently. We can write its value on the basis of induction, seeing that result which we have actually obtained for L1. So you can say similarly, what will be L2? L2 will be, we will write simply V at the place of U. So V into 1 plus X into R minus V. Instead of U, I am writing V and over V square. So this is the value of L2. So you can see we have calculated the value of L1 and L2 from the geometry of figure. Now see this equation 1. Actually equation 1 is defining the optical path. So let us substitute the value of L1 and L2 in this equation 1, and after that you will get the optical path traversed by this paraxial light ray. So using equations 2 and 3 in equation 1, you can see what will be this L. L is since L1 plus L2, and you have calculated already the value of L1 and L2. So let us substitute these values here, and you can see this will be what? This will be U into 1 plus X into R minus U over U square. This is actually L1, and plus L2. L2 is what? This is V into 1 plus X into R minus V over V square. So this is actually the optical path. Now you know, according to Fermat's principle, if this path, see here in this figure, if this path APB be the actual path of the light ray, then this path must be extremum. So, or you can say, according to Fermat's principle, this L will be extremum. So, according to Fermat's principle, this L will be extremum, and as you can see that L is actually a function of X. See this equation, L is depending on X. So if L will be extremum, then you know from calculus that the derivative of this L with respect to X will be 0. Therefore dl by dx, this will be equal to 0. Now substitute the value of L, differentiate it, simplify it, and you will see after simplifying it, we will get simply the spherical mirror formula. So let us put here the value of L. This is d dx, and what is L? You can see here, this is actually the value of L, you can see. So this is simply U plus, I am just multiplying by this U now. So this is U plus X times R minus U over U. One U in denominator will cancel here, plus, you can see here we will again multiply by this V to the terms inside the square bracket. So that will be V plus x times r minus v over, sorry, I have told that here should be actually v, sorry, u, but I have written u square. So one u will cancel out, so there will be simply u here, and here there will be v, and this will be equal to 0. So see here, now you can see, since the point A and B are fixed, that is the position of the object and the image are fixed, so this u is actually a constant, v is also a constant, r, which is radius of curvature of the mirror, so for a given mirror it is also constant. So in this equation the only variable is x. So after differentiation, what you will get? dc of u will be 0, and plus here dx will be 1, so this will be simply r minus u over u. Again that dc of v will be 0, and dc of x will be 1, so this is r minus v over v, and this equal to 0. So you can see our result is r minus u over u plus r minus v over v is equal to 0. Now let us divide both the terms in the numerator by the term in denominator. So this will be r over u minus 1 plus r over v minus 1, and this equal to 0. So see here, let us take r as a common factor. This will be 1 over u plus 1 over v, and in RHS there will be in fact 2. So from here you can see our result will be 1 over v plus 1 over u is equal to 2 over r. And you know this is actually the spherical mirror formula. Now you know in case of a mirror, the focal length f of the mirror is simply half of its radius of curvature. So instead of r you can write 2f, that is you can say r is equal to 2f. So when you will write 2f at the place of r, your result will be what? You can see this will be 1 over v plus 1 over u equal to 1 over f. So you can see how easily we can derive the spherical mirror formula by the use of Fermat's principle. So this simplicity actually indicates that Fermat's principle is very useful in dealing with the problems of geometrical optics. And now in the forthcoming lecture we will see some of the other important applications of Fermat's principle.